crochet friends, this is Chris of Light and Joy Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make this really cool corner to corner triangle shawl slash poncho. And you have a lot of choices in how to make this. I made this one in two similar but different color changing yarns, and then let me show you the other one. And this is the other one that I made, very similar. This one I made in two different but both very colorful colors. And what's really awesome about this pattern is you can, it wears like a shawl, but it's not as big as a poncho, so it's not like going to be overly hot. And you can wear it a couple of different ways. You can wear it with the V's in the front and the back, or you can wear the V's so that they're coming over your arms. And this is a very simple design that we're going to make with triangles. And today I'm going to show you how to make 8 total different styles with corner to corner crochet triangles. And I think you're gonna love it. It's really fun. So let's get started. So let's take a look at this corner to corner shawl that I'm now calling the Yin Yang Infinity Shawl. And later on in the video I'll explain to you why I gave it that name. But just for now, just for a sneak peek, I'm showing you how it's comprised of 2 triangles, one on the front and one on the back, and they are attached together in a way that makes this wear like a shawl but have the ease of a poncho. Okay, so let's take a look at the 5 things I'm going to teach you today in this video. The first is I'm going to teach you how to make corner to corner triangles. Super easy. The second thing I'm going to show you is how to finish the edge on these triangles. This is the edge I'm talking about, this jagged or squared off edge. I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can finish that. The third thing is I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can connect corner to corner pieces. You can connect them this way with their flat edges. I'm going to show you all of that. The fourth thing is I'm going to show you an easy way how to sew in the ends. And then lastly, I'm going to show you 8 different types of patterns that you can make using corner to corner triangles. And in particular, I'm going to show you specifically the pattern that I introduced you to in the beginning of the video, the Yin Yang Infinity Shawl pattern. So let's get started. For this pattern, you're going to need just the basics: a scissors, a yarn needle, a crochet hook of any size. For my patterns, I used, the patterns that you're going to see today, I used a J hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter hook. You're going to want to have a measuring tape and of course some yarn. Let me tell you the yarns that I used. In the video today I will be using Lion Brand Pound of Love in the colorway Lavender. For my greenish version of the Yin Yang Infinity Shawl, I used 2 different colors of yarn. I used, the first one is called King Cole Drifter, and it's a DK weight yarn, a number 3 weight yarn, and I used the colorway Ohio. And on the other side, it's kind of a similar color scheme, but it has a nice complementary effect, I think. And this one is Roll With It Melange by Red Heart, and it's in the colorway Green Room. And boy, the sunlight today is really showing how beautiful this yarn is. For these patterns, I used, it was less than a skein of each of these. And for this particular shawl, my triangle was a total of 24 of the squares along each edge. For this colorful version of the Yin Yang Infinity Shawl, I used two different colorways of the same yarn, and that yarn is Premier Garden Batik Multi-Yarn. It's a number 3 weight yarn. This colorway on this side is called Azalea, and I just couldn't recommend this yarn more. The sheen on it is so nice. It is 100% acrylic, but it is just so soft. And then on the other side is the colorway Dahlia, also equally just so pretty and vibrant. And again, just used probably a half a skein of each of these. And for this version, I had a total of 26 squares along each edge of my triangles. And I'll just add that this is actually what they call a micro acrylic. I don't know what that means specifically, but it does have the feel of like a bamboo yarn. It has the sheen and the feel of like a bamboo yarn. So it's a really, really nice option to use. And for actually both of these shawls, this one and the green one, I used a J hook, a 6.0 millimeter hook for both of these. I'll probably mention that at the end, but just in case you're watching it right now. And if you have a moment right now to give this video a thumbs up before the end comes, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm so grateful that you're here, and thank you for watching and also for subscribing. So let's get started. Okay, so let's take a look at how we make a corner to corner triangle. The way that corner to corner works is it works with these small little squares. And you start with one square. That's your first row. Then you make 2 squares. That's your second row. Then you make 3 squares, your third row. Then you make 4 squares, and so on. And it keeps going on like this, as large as you want your triangle to be. If you're interested in how to make square and rectangle corner to corner projects, I'll leave a link in the description below of the video that I have with that, and there's several project ideas in that video as well. So let's take a look at how these squares are made. We start off by chaining 6. The first 3 chains forms the bottom of our square, and the second 3 chains forms the side of our square. Once we get here, we're going to make 3 double crochets into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chain from our hook. And that's your first square. So let's take a look at that with the yarn. All right, so we're just going to start with a slip knot, and we are going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a double crochet into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chain from our hook. So you can also count it backwards. 1, 2, 3. So that's 1 into the 4th chain, that's 2 into the 5th chain, and we're going to do another one here into this last chain. And a double crochet, if you're new, is we yarn over, go into the stitch. You can either go into under 1 thread or under 2 threads. It doesn't matter as long as you just do it consistently across. Today I'm just going under 1 thread. Sorry, let me do that again. So yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, 1, 2, 3. You're going to yarn over, pull through 2 of those loops, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2, and that's your double crochet. And so there we have our first little square, and it does have a little bit of a like a rounded edge to it, and that will get straightened out. It'll become more square as your piece builds. And this right here is called the chain 3 space, and that's right here, this space in between the chain 3 and this first double crochet. That's your chain 3 space. Okay, so let's take a look at our row 2. So if you recall, we finished right here at this double crochet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make this same square, but we're going to make it on this side. So we're going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do 3 double crochets into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chains from our hook. That's our second square. Once we get here, we want to attach it to the first square. So we're going to do a slip stitch right into the chain 3 space. You don't have to go into the chains. You can just go right into the chain 3 space. Then we're going to chain 3, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. So you can see how these squares always have a chain 3 space and 3 double crochets. So that's our second row complete. Let's take a look at how we do that here with the yarn. So we just finished our double crochet here. We'll keep this here as a reference. Now we're going to do our 6 single chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we just kind of turn our work for ease of working, and we're going to go into the 4th chain from our hook. 1, 2, actually I find it easier to count from this end, so it'll be 1, 2, 3, the 3rd chain from the end. We're going to yarn over, go into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's our first double crochet. Now we're going to make 2 more into these next 2 chains. And the 3rd one. Okay, so now we have just made this square here. And let's take a look at how that looks. Okay, so this is our first square. This is our chain 3 over here. And here is our chain 6 along this bottom edge. It goes along here and up the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip that over. Okay, see, we were just working on it like this. We're just going to flip that over. And we're going to work into this chain 3 space. this chain 3 space here, and we're going to do a slip stitch. To slip stitch, we just yarn over, pull through a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop that's on your hook. Okay, so we are at a mirror image of this right here. So we're going to do our chain 3 and then our 3 double crochets. So we're going to do our chain 3, we're going to do our chain 3 here, and then 1, 2, 3 double crochets, because we are basically a mirror image of this picture at this point, and that's because of this pattern going back and forth. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do 3 double crochets right into that chain 3 space. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we just completed our second row. Okay, so this was our first square, first row. This is second square, third square. This is the second row, essentially. And if we turn this around, we can see that it matches up. When we flip it, it matches up with our diagram. So sometimes you just have to get used to the orientation of your piece versus the chart, and very quickly, once you do it, you'll get it very easily. Okay, so now we're ready for row 3 of our corner to corner, and we're just going to do the same thing that we did to start this row, and that is we're here, we're just going to chain 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you know what comes next. 3 double crochets into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chain from the hook. Then we're going to slip stitch to join this square to this one. We're going to slip stitch right into this chain 3 space. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets into this chain 3 space. We're going to connect this square to this one with a slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 3 to start our next square, and then 3 double crochets into this chain 3 space. And we've now completed row 3 with 3 squares. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so we left off here. Here we are. We're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to go into the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do a double crochet. And again into the next 2 chains. That's our 3rd one. Okay, now we need to flip this square up and connect it to this one. Okay, so we're here, we're connecting it to this square here. And to do that, remember, we're going to slip stitch into this chain 3 space, and there it is. There's that chain 3 space. So we're just going to go in there. We're going to do our slip stitch, pull through a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on our hook. And now we'll make our next square. We start with chain 3, 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. And then we're going to slip stitch, connect it to the next square, chain 3, and 3 double crochets into the chain 3 space. And there is our third row completed. So that's row 1, row 2, and row 3. So let's just look at one more row. It just continues back and forth like this, on and on. But let's look at one more just to cement it into our brains. So we finished here, we finished row 3 here. What do you think we're going to do? Just like we did at the start of every row, we're going to chain 6. Okay, and then we're going to do our 3 double crochets. We're going to do our slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochets into the chain 3 space, join with a slip stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochets, join with a slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 3, and 3 double crochets into the chain 3 space. And now we have our row 4. So let's take a look at that one more time. I'm going to go a little faster this time. If you need to, you can fast forward. Doing the 3 double crochets into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chain from the hook. I'm going to flip that square up and connect it to this next square. I'm going to slip stitch into that chain 3 space and chain 3 to start the next square, and 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. Let's get some more yarn here. And we're going to connect it to the next square with a slip stitch. Start our next square with a chain 3. Do 3 double crochets into this chain 3 space. And connect it to the next square in its chain 3 space with a slip stitch, chain 3, and 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. And as easy as that, our 4th row is now completed. So now for any of the projects that you're going to make, you will make your triangle to whatever size you determine. You'll just keep using that same method going back and forth. And on each side of your straight edges, you'll have the same number of squares, as well as the same number of squares along this edge. Okay, so that's how you make corner to corner triangles. Now let's take a look at how to finish the edges of these corner to corner triangles. Okay, so for the first way to finish your edge for a corner to corner triangle, you're going to love this, is you do nothing. You're just going to leave it with this naturally occurring embellishment that happens with corner to corner crochet. And you can see in my yin yang shawl, I left I left that element at the neckline for a nice decorative effect. So that's the first way. Let's take a look at the next way. So for the other two ways of finishing this edge, we're going to take a look at the first way, which is we're just going to create kind of a lace line that goes across the top edge. It's going to go across this top edge. So for that, it's very, very simple. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to, we will be here, we will have finished here, and you may have finished on this row, but wherever you finish, you will have just finished a double crochet. And then what you're going to do is you are going to slip stitch across those 4 stitches. And then when you get here, you're going to chain 3. Then you're going to slip stitch into this chain 3 space. You're going to chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, and slip stitch. Very, very easy. So here we are with the last 3 double crochets that we made. So we're just going to turn our work. We're going to go into that first stitch and do a slip stitch. We yarn over, pull through a loop, and we pull the first loop through the second loop. That's a slip stitch. And then we're going to do it in the second double crochet, the third, and then we're going to do a slip stitch right into that chain 3 space. And now we're going to chain 3. We're going to skip right over to the next chain 3 space, and we're going to slip stitch in there. Then we're going to chain 3, go to the next chain 3 space, slip stitch in there, and chain 3, and then go into all the way to the end, to the last chain 3 space, and then you finish off, and you will have this nice lace edging at the top. And you can use these holes for threading your triangle into different ways. So you can use it, if you made a large triangle, you'd be able to then use it as a shawl. And if you wanted to, you could temporarily fold it into ponchos or, different shapes by threading. You can make like a cord out of yarn, and then you can weave it in and out of these holes. Or you could put some other embellishment in there, like tassels or different things. So let's take a look at the second way to finish off the jagged edge of corner to corner. So the third way that we can finish off our corner to corner is by filling in each of these areas with little mini triangles. We fill it in like this, and we fill it in like this, and like this, like this. And then on the last corner, we fill it in like this. So let me show you that. So we finished here. And what we're going to do is we are going to do a chain 3. Then we are going to do, and that's going to count as a double crochet. Then we're going to do a half double crochet, we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do a slip stitch into this chain 3 space. Then here we're going to do a double crochet, a half double crochet, and a single crochet, and a slip stitch into the chain 3 space. Double crochet, half double crochet, single crochet, slip stitch, and so on. Double, half double, single crochet, slip stitch, and then when we get to this last triangle, we're going to just work around it this way. We're going to make a single crochet into the chain 3 space. We're going to make a half double, and then we're going to make a double, and that's going to put a little triangle at the end. And then you'll have a straight edge on all 3 sides, and this will be all filled in. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we are where we finished row 4. We're going to chain 3. That's going to count as a double crochet. In the next stitch we're going to do, so we're going to skip this stitch because this is going to count as our double crochet. So we're going to go right to the second double crochet, and we're going to do a half double crochet. To do that, you yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. We have 3 loops on the hook, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3. In the next stitch we're going to do a single crochet. You just go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through a loop, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we're going to finish with a slip stitch into that chain 3 space. Okay, so now we're at this next square here, and we are going to do a double crochet into that first double crochet. We're going to do a half double crochet in the next one, a single crochet in the next, and then a slip stitch into the chain 3 space, and so on. We're just going to do that all the way down the line. Double crochet, half double, single, and slip stitch. It's just so easy to do and so easy to remember. Double crochet, half double, single, slip stitch, and now we're going to do a single crochet. We're going to do a half double crochet, and then we're going to do a double crochet. And now we have a nice straight edge at the top of our triangle, of our corner to corner triangle. And you can use this edge in its entirety, or you can use it partially. So for instance, when we make some of these patterns, some of them you'll only do the edging for a portion of it. Let's say you wanted to keep some of the embellishment for a different portion of the garment. Okay, so now we're going to learn how to connect the corner to corner pieces using 2 different methods. And of course, to finish, you'll just do a chain 1, cut your yarn, and pull that through. Okay, so here I have 2 different colored corner to corner triangles. They're each 9 square triangles, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can join them. Now, the join can happen at the zigzags, or the joins can happen along the flat edges, and either way the joining methods are the same, and I'll show those to you. Okay, so the first method of joining I call the slip stitch method, and this represents the edges of 2 pieces these are the mini squares, so like 1, 2, 3 squares and 1, 2, 3 squares. And what we're going to do is we're going to, one of the characteristics of corner to corner crochet is that each of these mini squares, they're all connected at their corners. So if we look at the fabric, we have holes in between each square. There's holes that surround each square. They're all connected at their corners. All right. So when we connect two pieces, we want to maintain that same element of the fabric. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be connecting at the corners of each squares, and we will connect with a slip stitch. So I'm just going to represent the connecting slip stitch as a dot. And then along one side, the side that, if you look at the squares, you're going to have squares that have a chain, that have a chain 3 here, and you're going to have squares that have a double crochet on the side. So for each of the ones that have a chain 3 on that side, we're going to be slip stitching into those 3 chains. So on one side we will slip stitch 3. We'll do a connecting slip stitch between these two corners. Then we'll do 3 slip stitches on this side. We'll do a connecting slip stitch here, and then 3 slip stitches on this side, and then a connecting at the next corner, and so on all the way, or for however long you need to seam those pieces together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up my edges so that on one side I have the chains. Here's a chain, and on one side, and on the other side I have a double crochet, so that they alternate. You see the difference there? They're going, I want them going in different directions. So I'm going to take a different color yarn to show you how to do this. So I'm going to make a slip knot at the end, and I'm going to put my hook into the corner, whatever stitch I'm starting at, on both sides. So like for instance on this square, these are the 3 original chains that we did our double crochets into. So I'm going to go into that first one, and then on this side I'm going into the top of my double crochet. Then I'm going to take the slip stitch, the slip stitch that I made, that loop, and I'm going to pull that through both of those corners, tighten that up, and then I'm going to just slip stitch there. It's basically like just doing a chain. So then on this side I'm going to go into these chains too. I'm going to slip stitch along these chains, and I already slip stitched into that first one, so I don't need to do 3. And now when I get to this next stitch, this is going to be a connecting point, so I'm going to go in to this stitch. Actually, sorry, I'm going to go into this space on both squares, and I'm going to do a slip stitch in there. Okay, so we just connected our first 2 squares. I've gone into the spaces in between the first and second square on both sides, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch, and now I'm going to slip stitch along the side of the opposite side. So I'm going to go into these chains, and I'm just going to slip stitch 1, 2, and 3. And you may have noticed that when we first started, that first slip stitch counted as this first slip stitch. So we actually only ended up having 2 slip stitches in between our connecting slip stitches. So here but now for this next square I just did 3 slip stitches, and now we're ready to connect to the next 2 spaces, the next 2 corners. I go into both of those spaces. Okay, I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'm just going to slip stitch that to the loop on my hook. And now I'll switch over to this side, doing a slip stitch along each of these original chains. And now we're back at the next connecting point. We'll find the connecting point on the other side, yarn over, and slip stitch to connect. And then we just continue this all the way up the piece. All the way up to the end, and of course you just end with a slip stitch at the top corner, and that your piece will be connected. And you know, this can be kind of a decorative effect that you may like, but on the opposite side you won't even notice it, and your fabric will continue to have that same look. Okay, so the second method is very similar. We start with a connecting slip stitch, and then instead of doing slip stitches on the material, we're just going to chain 3, then do a connecting slip stitch between these 2 corner spaces, chain 3, and so on. Connecting slip stitch, chain 3, connecting slip stitch. Let's take a look at that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut off where we left off before so you can see the difference between the two. I just did a chain 1 there. And now I'm going to start from the other end, because it doesn't matter which end you start from. I'm just going to start the same way, make a slip knot, tighten it up, and then we're going to go into our corner stitch on each side. So on this side I'm just going to go right into that chain 3 space, put the loop on the hook, pull it through both sides, and just do a slip stitch or a chain 1. It's the same thing. And now we're just going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we just go to the next connecting point on each side. So there's the next connecting point on each side. We just go into both of those, yarn over, pull through a loop, and then slip stitch it through the loop on your hook. Now of course if you wanted to, you could do other things here, like you could do a single crochet instead, but if you want to maintain the same feel of the fabric, this is the connecting method you'll want to use, one of these 2 methods. So then we chain 3, we go to the next connecting spot on each side, yarn over, pull through a loop, make sure it's nice and tight so we don't have any gaps, and then chain 3 again. And go to the next space. This is the easier of the two methods. Oops, sorry about that. Chain 3, go to the next connecting space on both sides, slip stitch, and chain 3. And then slip stitch at the last connecting point. And I'm just going to chain 1. I'm going to cut my yarn, pull that through. All right, let's take a look at the difference between the two methods. This is the chain method, and this is the slip stitch method. So they're slightly different. You still maintain the holes between the fabric. With the slip stitch method, you maintain the holes between the fabric and there's kind of nothing in there. With the chain, there's a little, the chain is in between the two. But when you turn your piece over, the two methods look pretty much the same. So usually I work with the chain method because it is it's the easier of the two. All right, so just one last thing with connecting pieces. Sometimes you may want to connect your pieces with the jagged edges coming together, like so. And to do that, you can use either one of these two methods. And the way that you'll start is you'll start at one end, you'll make a connecting slip stitch, and then you'll either use the slip stitch method or the chain method, 1, 2, 3, and then you'll connect at this corner and this corner with a slip stitch, and then 1, 2, 3, either chain or slip stitch, and then you'll connect this corner and this corner. So let me show you that. Okay, so let's say we want to connect these two jagged edges together. We're going to make our slip stitch, tighten it up, and we're going to start at this corner and this corner here. Just going to go into the stitch at the corner, and on this one it's a chain 3 space, so I'm just going to go right into that chain 3 space. I'm going to put the slip stitch loop on my hook, pull it through both, and do my slip stitch or chain 1, and I'm just going to tighten that down. And then I'm going to begin with either slip stitching along one of these edges, and in this case I would slip stitch across the edge that had these double crochets, since there's nice stitches to go into there. But in this case I'm just going to do the chain method, chain 1, 2, 3, and then we go to the next two corners. So that would be this kind of outside corner and this inside corner. So I'm going to go into this stitch here, and I'm going to go into this slip stitch here, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. I'm going to pull through a loop and slip stitch there, and then I'm going to chain 3. Okay, so we've got our first two squares connected. Now I'm going to come down to this next corner, do a slip stitch, chain 3, or slip stitch, whichever you prefer, come to the next two corners. That's going to be here and here. When I'm going to an inside corner, I'm going right into the slip stitch. That's the slip stitch that always occurs at the in the chain 3 space. And chain 3. So you're just going to continue that all the way along, and then you'll have a zigzag connection. Let me just do this a little bit further. So you can see how it makes this nice decorative edge. So if you wanted to use that as a design element for a pattern, that's a nice option as well. And then of course on the opposite side, you're not going to see the edging. So, you know, whichever way you want it to look. You can also use this edging, like let's say you did it along here and you had a blanket, you could use this edging just for creating an edging along the outside as well if you wanted to match it up. And if you were doing that, you would just do slip stitch, either chain 3 or slip stitch, and then a slip stitch in the corner, chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, slip stitch, all the way around to get this type of edging on the outside as well. Okay, so now the next part I'm going to show you is how to sew in the ends with corner to corner. This is really easy. Let me show you that. So you're going to start by threading your yarn needle, and a nice easy way to do that is take the yarn, put it over the top of your needle, pull it tight, pull the needle out, and then just slide the needle on that loop, and it threads through very easily. So for sewing in your ends for corner to corner, what I like to do is get my thread, my yarn, to a place where I have the bottom of 3 double crochets. You see where they've connected to a chain 3 space. And then I just go back and forth in that a couple of times, and that should be sufficient. If you wanted to do that on a couple of squares, you can do that. So let me show you what I do. I'm here at the top of a double crochet. I'm just going to go right down through that stitch with my yarn. I'm not going to pull too tight because I don't want to shorten up that stitch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath all these loops where the 3 double crochets were made, and I'm just going to go back and forth a couple of times. So you can see I just came out from under this thread here. So the next time I go in, I'm going to skip over this one, and I'm going to start by going in under this one all the way through to the end. And I came out of this one, so I'm going to skip over this one, and I'm going to go under this one all the way to the end. Just tight enough so that your loops don't stick out the end, and then I'll just go back through one more time. Not all the way to the end, but to like either the second or third to the end thread. Pull it through, and then I'm just going to cut that nice and close. And because I've gone back and forth a few times, that'll stay in place. So that's how you sew in your ends for corner to corner. Super easy. Okay, so now for the very, very exciting part. I am going to be showing you not 8, but 12 different ways that you can use triangles to make some really cool projects. And for those of you who end up buying the pattern, I'm going to have a template in there that you can print out so that you can play around. You can, print out multiples of these so that you can play around with these triangles to try out different ways to put together these geometric shapes to see what other things you might want to come up with. Okay, so let's take a look at the first concept. The first one is the double triangle shawl. So this is pretty basic. You will take 2 triangles, and it can be, you know, complementary yarn. It can be the same yarn, and you're going to seam it up the center, and that will be your beautiful shawl. Of course, there's lots of, you know, things you could do. You could come up with a different kind of seam that you could do in between the 2 of these, and maybe I'll add that in at the end. Or you could do them in the same color, but this is a very simple and easy idea. With any of these patterns, anytime you're using the jagged edge, I want to show you that there's an opportunity for tassels into that chain 3 space. It makes a perfect place for putting your tassels. And also for any of the other patterns that I'm going to show you now. Corner to corner is great for tassels because it has this great spacing. You can put a tassel every place there is a space between the squares. So just wanted to point that out to you about that, the tassel opportunity. Okay, the second idea is the Angel Infinity Shawl. And the way that this works is we have 2 triangles, and what we're going to do is when you sew it, you're going to have one that comes like this on the inside. These corners are going to come in like this. And depending on how big your triangles are, you may also end up seaming from here to here, or it may be that you have this entire edge as your neckline. And then the second triangle is going to be seamed along the outside. In fact, why don't I just tape this to show you. And then on the other side, let's do one more piece here. And then on the other side, this is going to get seamed over here. And you can use stitch markers to hold your piece in place to get the spacing just right. See how you want it to go. So this is going to give you kind of a little bit of an asymmetric, it could be like a cowl, or it could also end up being in the shape of, you know, like a large poncho. And it'll be slightly asymmetric. So that's the Angel Infinity Shawl. The next idea is the Yin Yang Shawl, and that is exactly the one that I showed you earlier. That's these 2 shawls, this one and this one. And what I did with these is, you can see in this picture, we have the 2 triangles. And instead of connecting them like we did in the angel shawl, where we connected 2 on the inside and then 2 on the outside like this, what we're going to do is kind of like a yin yang symbol. We're going to have one on the inside here, one on the outside, and one on the inside from each triangle. And what I did with mine was I figured out how big I wanted the center to be, and I squared off these triangles before attaching. So I figured out, you know, so like let's say we were going to do, let's say the neckline was going to be between this, let's just call it a corner and this corner. So I did a straight edge just from here down to here, and a straight edge from here to here on both sides. And then what I did was you have one side connecting on the outside, and then you have this other edge connecting on the inside like that. And this center is where your goes around your head. So the way it'll look, if you kind of fold it, you have this one on the bottom on this side, and this is where I would do my squaring off to. Then on this side, when we fold this one down, this one's going to be on the bottom and this one's going to be on the top. And as I mentioned before, just figure out kind of how wide you want this to be. Use your measuring tape to determine how wide you want your opening to be. If you want your opening to be a straight edge, then just create the straight edge all the way across on both of your triangles ahead of time. Otherwise, just do it to the point where you're going to be doing your connections. So it would be like from here to here. And that is the yin yang. So when I turn it over on this side, it's the opposite. This is on the bottom, the light pink. And when you turn on this side, the dark pink is on the bottom. So and this gives you a really cool shawl. If you know, it depends on how big you make it. If you make it small like this, it could be like a cowl. But the larger you make it, the more it is like a shawl. And it's kind of nice because you don't have to wear a shawl pin. It still looks like a shawl without having to worry about it falling off your shoulders. For both of my yin yang infinity shawls, I want to show you what measurements I had. As I mentioned before, for the green one, which is a number 3 and a number 4 weight yarn with a 6mm hook, I had a total of let's see here, a total of 24 squares from each corner. From the bottom corner to each corner here. And for the colorful one, my 2 triangles were 26 squares. Now, when I put them together, I finished off a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I did a straight line for 12 of those jagged edges, and then I left the rest undone. And then I did the same on one edge of the other triangle. I finished off 12 here. And so on the inside, depending on where you're counting from, so this is the final corner of the melange yarn. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 of these jagged or corners along this neckline, and then the same on the other side, 12 on that side. So if you're trying to make yours the exact same size as mine, that's how I did it with this one. And with this one, I have the same. I have, it's slightly different. This one is a 26 square. So, you know, just depending on the yarn that you're using, you may have more or less squares, but I have, for the neckline on this one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then that means that I squared off, or I put a straight edge onto the other 13 along this edge. And by doing that, then it made it easy for me to attach this edge to this straight edge of the green and purple triangle. And again, one side goes under and the other side goes over. Let me just show you with the smaller pieces. So like in this small example, you might fill in between 3 of these. So you'd have a fill in here and here and down here. And once you've filled those in, when you attach them, just like just like any time you connect with these, it's just going to go corner. It's always corner to corner. Okay, so these corners will match up. So we'll have the dark pink on the bottom, then this gets folded in, and now we're going to have the light pink on the bottom on this side, and you would do the same on this side. You would fill in between these 3. So whatever you do on one side, do it the same on the other side. And then you would connect these squares right along like this. This corner will get connected to this corner. This inside space will get connected to this corner. This corner will get connected to this space here. And that's how you put it together. And of course, as you're building yours, what I would recommend is making your 2 triangles kind of at the same time and keep them the same size. And then what you can do is you can put stitch markers at each of your corners. This one's on the bottom, so this one goes on the bottom. And then put stitch markers on the other side, and then you can try it on and see if the sizing is right. If you want it to be bigger, just make more rows in your triangles. Also, another thing I want to show you is if you make the neck space smaller by going like this, okay, the neck space is going to be much smaller. Then it becomes a little bit more like a cowl, and the further out you come, the more it is like a shawl, and it wears like a shawl. It'd be like this, you know, and you can wear it any way around. The next idea is the simple triangle shawl, and just like it says, you're just going to make one triangle, and you can either do the lacy edge with the holes like I showed you, or you can make it a straight edge by filling in those spaces, or you can leave it jagged. So whatever kind of look you might be trying to achieve, you have 3 different options there for finishing that. Okay, so number 5 is the bandana triangle cowl. And with this one, what we do is we take our triangle. This is going to be your jagged edge, and you can either leave it jagged or you can straighten it off. You're going to take one side, you're going to take the A corner, fold it in. You're going to take the B corner and fold that down. and you're going to seam it along here. So the portion that you're going to seam from here to here, you'll straighten that off ahead of time before you attach it to this side. And then you will have a nice bandana cowl that will come down in the front. Be very pretty, or you can wear it off to the side over your shoulder. So that's number 5. Number 6 is the double triangle poncho. And for this one, you're going to have 2 triangles, and you're going to seam them along here. You're going to determine how big your neck space is that you want, and you can mark it with stitch markers. And then if you make it really big, that's your neck hole there. If you make it really big, you could also make armholes in the sides too, so that as this hangs down, your arms can come out the sides if you like. And when you sew this together, you can either sew it together with the zigzags in place, or you could straighten off that edge first by filling in these squares before seaming the 2 together. So that's number 6, the double triangle poncho. Okay, so this is the parallelogram wrap. You can either make it a double one or a triple. And what you'll do is you will take your 2 triangles, and you'll have your ripple edges at the top and the bottom, and you'll seam along the straight edge, and you'll make this big enough, and you'll have a really cool. If you want it to be even bigger, you could add a 3rd triangle, and then you'll have this shape here, kind of like a oh, I forget what the name of that is in geometry. I'll have to ask my son. So anyways, that's another kind of a wrap or shawl that you could make with the triangles. And again, you could finish off the edges and make them straight, or you can leave them rippled. Okay, so for number 8 is the single triangle asymmetric poncho or ponchette. And for this one, you are going to take your triangle, and you are going to be folding the edges down like this. Okay, and you're going to figure out how large this will be your neck opening, your head opening. You'll figure out how large you want the poncho to be. Do you want it to just be like kind of like a scarf, or do you want it to be, this would be like a scarf version, and this would be like a poncho version. It's going to have sort of an asymmetric feel to it. So that's pretty easy. And when you're, you know, it's what's nice about this is you just start making the triangle, and you can test it out along the way to see if it's at the size that you want by using stitch markers to hold these seams together in place. The other thing is, if you make the simple triangle and you do the edge with the lacy edge where we have the holes here, you can take that shawl and make it into one of these temporarily by just lacing along that lacy edge at any time, and then you can take it out when you want to wear it as a shawl again. So that's number 8, the single triangle asymmetric poncho or ponchette, and I can see that I spelled this wrong here. Single, there we go. So idea number 9 is the parallelogram scarf. And for this, you would just take, multiple triangles and just whatever size you want, and just start building them one after another. You could, alternate the colors, or you could have multiple colors. You can, you probably want to have the edge, the fancy edge, because that's probably, you know, a nice unique feature of this type of stitch. So, but if you wanted to, you could straighten them off too. So that's number 9. So I wasn't going to do blankets, but I couldn't resist because this could be a very cool blanket. You could do 4 different colors, and if you recall when we were doing the stitching, what you would end up having is on one side you would have this nice kind of border, so you could plan it out so that you have kind of some cool border stitches between the triangles on one side, and then when you flip it over, it won't show. So you'll have kind of a two different looks with one blanket. Okay, the next one is a 3 triangle wrap, and for this one you'll take 3 triangles. You'll have your fancy edging on each side, and you can connect them, and so you can use 3 different colors, or you know, whatever, maybe you want to do some sort of a fade. You can really just let your creativity run with that, and this would be a like a wrap that you would wear and you'd come down over your shoulders like that. Okay, and so then the last one is something where you would work with maybe 3 different colors, or you could do multiple colors. This would be a triangles blanket motif. So you would make a bunch of triangles, and then you would connect them using whichever method you like best. I think that the chain method is the easiest, and it looks, I think it even looks the nicest. And you would have this nice, accent color down. So as you see here, I've got light green, dark green, and a fuchsia color. And then you could do that all the way around, and then you could, you know, connect all your squares, and then you could have an edging all the way around as well. And that might be a very cool blanket. You could do a lot of fun stuff with that with color. So I'm going to add that one to my list. Okay, so that was our, not 8, but 12 triangle patterns. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you learned a lot and got a lot of great ideas. I hope that you will share with me and the rest of us your finished projects when you make some. Let us know in the comments below which one you would like to try first, and maybe what colors or yarns you think you might use. And then if you do make one, be sure to leave a link in the comments below with the where we can see your pictures, whether you've got them posted on Facebook or Instagram or Ravelry. And please give this video a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe for weekly tutorials, giveaways, and more. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Chris of Light and Joy Designs, and this pattern is number 30, I think, of the Crochet Magical Mystery Tour. It's a year-long crochet along, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.